They sent me to Bay 9 on a Tuesday because nobody else wanted the job. That is not a figure of speech. The job order had been sitting in the queue for 4 days, bounced down the chain from the senior engineering teams to the junior engineering teams, to the contract specialists, and from the contract specialists to the dry dock supervisor's desk, and from the supervisor's desk to me, which is the last stop before the trash. I do hull seal inspections. I carry a kit bag that weighs about 9 kilos and I go where the list says. When the list says Bay 9, I go to Bay 9. I did not know what was in Bay 9 until I got there. The Aldenath 4 filled it the way a mountain fills a valley, not fitting inside so much as simply occupying the space and leaving the walls no choice. She was the Velhari Fleet Command ship, 700 meters of pale gray battle plating, and she was supposed to have launched 12 days ago. Instead, she was sitting in the dock cradle with her keel gallery open to the inspection floor and a slow, steady pressure leak that 4 days and 31 certified fleet engineers had not been able to locate. I stood at the bay entrance for a moment. 31 of them. I counted the equipment arrays lined up along the portside wall. 8 atmosphere density scanners for acoustic resonance rigs, and 2 full spectral imaging platforms that cost more than I will earn in my lifetime. The engineers themselves were clustered at a workstation near the bow, talking in low voices that bounced off the plating overhead. None of them looked at me. I am a SEAL inspector in gray coveralls with a kit bag. People like me are what the dock looks like. Background furniture, part of the texture of the place. I noted, without feeling much about it, that someone was watching from the upper gallery. A Velhari officer in fleet dress, very still, hands clasped behind his back, pale blue-gray skin, the kind of angular cheekbones that Velhari admirals seem to grow the way other people grow into gray hair. He was watching the engineers, then he was watching me. I looked away and got to work. The job order said, pressure anomaly, keel section C through F, nature unspecified. It did not say 31 engineers had already tried. It did not say the fleet commissioning timetable had collapsed around this single ship. It just said keel section C through F. And so I walked the length of the gallery until I found the service crawlway hatch, opened it and went in. The keel gallery of a ship that size is not a comfortable place. It is a low corridor that runs the underside of the hull, lit by work strips, smelling of coolant compound and old metal, and the particular flat non-smell that recycled dock air develops when it sits in an enclosed space too long. The plating overhead was close enough that I had to tuck my chin going through the lower frames. The deck under my boots was dry and clean. Whoever managed the dry dock crew kept things properly swept, which I always notice and appreciate because you can't read a deck for fluid trails if it's already wet with accumulated condensate. I walked the gallery slowly, running my fingertips along the inner hull face. Not because fingertips tell you anything definitive, but because 30 years of SEAL inspection, 22 years of my mother's before me, and 8 of mine, have a way of teaching you what to notice before you know what you're noticing. I stopped at section D. There was nothing to see. The plating looked fine. The adhesion seams looked fine. I crouched down, pressed my palm flat against the hull face, and waited. You do this because vibration lies. The acoustic rigs and the density scanners read the hull as it presents itself, as a surface with known properties, known tolerances, and known resonance signatures. What they are not designed for is a delamination that sits between the outer seal layer and the inner hull backing, where there is no air gap wide enough to trigger a pressure sensor, but enough flex in the bonding to let the seal breathe just barely under load. It is not a common failure mode. It is a failure mode I have seen exactly twice in 8 years, both times in ships that had been in cold storage for a long period before refit, where the bonding compound had cured unevenly and the inner layer had pulled away in a stripe no wider than my hand. The vibration under my palm was wrong. Not dramatically wrong, just slightly off the frequency I expected. A faint secondary resonance underneath the main hull hum, like a note played slightly flat. I moved my palm 6 centimeters to the right. The secondary tone got stronger. 6 centimeters farther, stronger still. I followed it for about half a meter before it peaked and then faded, which told me the extent of the delamination. Then I sat back on my heels and looked at the strip of hull plating in front of me. I opened my kit bag. Hull patch tape is not a sophisticated material. It is a fiber-reinforced adhesive backing with a pressure cure compound on the bonding face, designed for temporary seal reinforcement on secondary surfaces. The sort of thing you use when a fitting has worked loose and you need to hold it until the proper repair can be scheduled. Costs about 30 credits a roll. I carry 4 rolls in my kit bag at all times, along with the hand roller, a seam knife, a small probe light, and a folding square for checking angles. My mother carried the same kit. Her mother before her carried something close to it. I cut 2 strips to length with the seam knife, pressed the first one across the top edge of the delamination band, and worked it down with the hand roller, a tool about the size of a thick pen with a ribbed wheel on one end, pressing out any air from the bond line with 3 slow passes. Then I applied the second strip below, overlapping the first by 2 centimeters, and worked that down the same way. I worked the roller along the seam 3 times. The hiss I had not consciously noticed until that moment stopped. I lay there for a second, listening. The gallery was quiet in the way pressurized spaces go quiet when the pressure is holding. Clean, settled silence. Then I collected my tools, put everything back in the kit bag, and started back toward the hatch. The Admiral was standing at the end of the gallery when I came out. I was not expecting that. I stopped, and we looked at each other. Then I noticed that behind him, in a loose semicircle at a respectful distance, were about a dozen of the engineers, the senior ones by the look of their rank tabs. All of them very still,